Kathy Vick, Deeply Awake. So I'm going to be reading a reprint of a channel that I did at the end of Holy Week in 2013. At that time, I didn't even have a name for the group, so I called it The Group. And I didn't even title this, although it's about a phonograph, and the star of the story, it's a parable, is a needle. And so I want to just explain really briefly that one of the reasons that you're seeing reprints being read by me is that I'm playing a bit of consciousness ping pong with my readers. I go to the stats page on WordPress, and I'll review sometimes, just idly, what people are looking at, what they're digging up. And then I'll read it. And if gongs go off, and I realize, oh my goodness, I think I might have written that thing for today, then I will videotape it. Partly as a gift for the person who had enough creativity and interest to find something on my site from long ago, and partly to honor the prescience of my words. So with that, I'd like to offer you this interesting parable, which I find I've read it only the first time, and then one other time, and I didn't like it then, and I'm reading it now. It's like, oh my gosh, I think I can't wait until the end. Oh, I know what happens. I can't hardly wait. So the problem is when I read, I'm dyslexic, so it's very hard for me to read out loud fluidly. It's just hard for me, and it's hard to read. It's just a struggle to read. It's not a struggle to write. It's a struggle to read. So I'd gotten about, I don't know, halfway through, and I just stumbled too much. So I'm doing it over. Here we go. This was originally written May 16 of 2013. So an oldie, but a goodie. They were on point. Ready? Okay. We have allowed you to visit the great sky as we take on this task, this at hand, to speak to your friends, the ones who we are wishing to remind and touch and love. We love, we must, for this is the all. It is the only language. It is what gives the sounds your lovely ears sense. It gives utterances the light of love, that which conveys meaning. We wish you to consider a phonograph and its needle. The needle does not know that which it will touch, that which it will glide across. It knows its function is to touch a surface, and in so doing, a sound is produced. Can you imagine if the needle, the phonograph needle, had consciousness? Would it have favorite songs it likes to hear? At first, the little needle may not understand that it is when the black disc is lowered onto its feet that sound is produced. Many days may pass before our needle understands fully that the black groove might be what is actually making the music. More days to understand that it is the interaction of needle to black disc which produces sound. More days to see, to feel, to finally take for granted. Dear one, take for granted that when black disc touches needle, that what occurs is actually very pleasant. The needle spent the first few weeks out of its box feeling banged up and unnecessarily rubbed up against. Some of its finer crystals slip off every time a black disc comes close, and for some time the needle feared the disc because of this, feeling this was somehow a true and grievous and unfair and cruel diminishment, not understanding that this diminishment was actually just the removal of debris, the slow and steady removal of which made the music all that more sweet. Please understand the joy this little conscious needle felt, yes, loved one, felt, the day. It was a bright winter day when the needle had yet another encounter with a big black disc, and this time when the rubbing and gliding and sound happened, the needle felt the music. Feel the joy and the bliss this little one knew when its being understood the sheer triumph contained in Ode to Joy, the divine bliss in Handel's Hallelujah Chorus, the deep understanding and celebration of Lenny Kravitz as he belts out Mama Said. Yes, that day was a great one. That moment, that perhaps 2 seconds of comprehension, the moment the needle really heard this music, understood its beauty for the very first time. Oh, what a moment. Do you think the understanding and the joy and learning ended the moment our little fellow heard a snippet of music? Oh, I can assure you, this task that used to chafe and anger the needle became a pleasurable one it anticipated wholeheartedly and engaged in eagerly and celebrated with sheer joyful abandon. This is because the needle began to anticipate the fun and the joy and creativity it was presented with. And the needle, bless its soul, the needle began learning the tunes. And then the needle became anxious. Our little needle liked certain music more than others. It spent so many months, a lot longer than his training. His first few days out of the box, he spent most of this life really just putting things together, enjoying the music and humming along. Then one day something happened, something very unusual to the needle. The needle had gotten very comfortable with its routine and had even gotten a little bored. Yes, it began to recognize what sort of music it would be hearing for a half an hour just by the look, the feel of whatever disc got plopped down. Sure, it would then hunker down and say, "Ah, yes, well, I knew it would sound something like this." It even got to be a bit of an expert. Of course, it had never really spent any time around any of its kind. It didn't even know if any other such things as it existed. Sure, it was always hearing other music, sometimes real close, sometimes very faintly, sometimes lots of music, sometimes not very much, but sure, there was this other sound. But what of it? It never dawned on the needle, of course, that needles were touching black grooved discs, producing sounds from other record players. Oh my gosh, thinking such a thought? No, sir. It just didn't seem applicable to the needle. It was an abstraction, and it never gave it a whole lot of thought. Such was the life of our little needle. But you must understand, this needle had been a diligent one. He was in his own little box, in the factory. He went right into his pretty box, and he went from there to the phonograph. Do you see? So he had figured out his purpose as best he could, given the stimulus and the understanding that he had been available to him already in the package, so to speak. There came a day when the owner of the record player decided to rearrange things a little bit. Of course, the needle did not like this very much, did not understand why it had not been consulted, since it, all by itself, had become convinced its awareness was correct. This needle was single-handedly creating all this music for its room. It had gotten comfortable with its surroundings, our needle, and when the lid was cracked, never something it could anticipate, but something it always, always, always loved, it got to peek and see a few things. Movement, color, voices, and always the other sounds, the other music in the background. But all it really knew, when it's all said and done, that it loved one thing best, this grand event that somehow made it feel like more than a little needle. When those black grooves came close, touched it, and then it could sing again. So there came a day when the owner of the house felt it was time to rearrange things. She had bought a new stereo system and needed to rearrange a few things. The needle was put into its box. And this darkness and stuffiness, well, it worried the needle. The needle had enjoyed peeking, had enjoyed the movement and lights and excitement. It had loved learning and assimilating new things. And now it was dark. And our little needle was more lonely somehow now, more lonely now than ever before, in an existence which the needle began to think, there alone in its box, had been a pretty solitary and selfish one. Above all, you see, love, oh, our dearest love, the needle missed the music. There in the box, the needle began to put a few things together. In the dark, there was not a lot to do. The dark extended before the needle, and it decided to just allow this new phase. There in the dark, it started doing something that surprised and then began to delight. It began to sing all by itself. It found that it could do so just by remembering its most beloved music. It had wanted more and more and more of the beautiful stuff, the stuff it loved, and it remembered how it had once wanted to find a way to direct what music it played so it only ever got to listen to Bach for all its remaining days. And so our needle sang to itself. The needle thought that this would never end, so, of course, melancholy would visit. Disappointment, longing, these became companions for the needle, there alone, singing in its box. And then, one day, there was light. That's all the needle knew. One day there was darkness, and one day there was once again light. Imagine the needle's surprise. Do you know what happened? What greeted the needle when it was taken out of its box? There, the needle rode in a soft pink hand. It was gently and lovingly placed in a holder, just as before, only now it felt a beautiful joining with this record player, a fusion of sorts. It felt sort of like it was part of the whole thing. Odd, the needle thought, odd indeed. And then it saw its black disc, and the needle was filled with such sudden and deep and true joy that it swooned, because there on the disc was the label of our little needle's most cherished tune, right there, coming toward it once again, flying now. Here comes Jesu, joy of man's desiring. This is what we want you to know at the moment of contact, when old needle, somehow newly regenerated, feeling brand new, once the needle physically approached that grooved disc, flew closer and closer and closer still. It could already hear the song, and when the song began to play, it was nothing like what the needle was accustomed to. You see, while the needle was in the box, much had been done to the house, and to the record playing system, to the speakers, all of it. And now, the needle was firmly and forever a grand, integral part of it all. And do remember that there in the dark, our needle had chosen to keep active and to seek out its truest joy. And it learned how to sing there in that cramped box in the dark. The needle had always been correct to understand and appreciate its value, because without the music, the home would be dead. There would be no music, no joy, no communication, no love. But the record player which formerly housed the needle had had its day. It was old, and the speakers, though adequate, were not state-of-the-art, and the owner just got real tired of scratchy music. So the record player our little needle was so lovingly enjoined with, fused with, well, this record player had much different abilities than the old system. The music this player could broadcast could be heard by anyone on Earth, and it could be heard by very distant people on distant planets. The music could be heard by whole groups of people, weirdly, strangely, to the needle's way of thinking, at least initially, broadcast somehow in its entirety to great groups of people. Now, you can imagine there was much in front of the needle to do. The needle was a music lover, and its time in the factory box had heightened all of its senses, including its will. The needle learned quite rapidly that this new system had a cooperative nature, and if the needle thought about it just right and held a very grateful heart, the music it most loved would present to it for its pleasure. This alone soothed the needle, the last of the needle's discouragement and anger at having spent so many long days in that box without music. What we wish for you to appreciate with this analogy is that you are the needle, black disc, record player, house owner, composer, musician, recording engineer, record factory, and listener. You are not singular. You are part of a new cooperative. You may ask for what delights you, and it is our delight to provide it to you. Think of your ego as the needle. It has a purpose, and if it does its purpose fully, mindfully, and with great joy and creativity, it has a great time. And the system really only works when the needle takes full responsibility for this. The needle is the only way in which the very music of the spheres can be heard here on your planet. Everyone has this setup. The records are not scratchy. It is impossible for these recordings to become corrupted. And now, dear one, you sense the power in this analogy. Now you see just what it is we're telling you. You yourself are the diamond light through which all this is transmuted, all potential, into sound, which is light and love. Sound begins and ends all. Sound contains all. Sound is all. We can say this is true about spin, about love, about integrity, about balance. But today our focus here is on sound. You have within you the diamond needle with which you can play any Akashic record you wish to play. You dwell in a home which delights in being filled with the sounds of the ancients, and the sounds form your home itself. Through the dark nights of your soul, through your nights in the box, your days in confusion and suffering, your years in the desert, these were necessary to tune you to a more clear sound picture. Do you think you were left alone while in your factory box? You remember our analogy of the farmer and the bean, all his little covered pots of sprouting beans, each one thinking they were going to be eaten, each wanting to be with the others, because the beans prefer to be together when they're consumed. All the time unaware, the purpose of the dark and the water in which it rode was not to boil, but to germinate. But as the lid went down and the darkness closed in around the bean, the needle, the human being, something was happening. We told you of the null zone. We told you of the 3 days of night, 3 nights and days, full nights and days of nothing, null, the void itself. We told you how the Pueblans understood it and have made entire cities which can run independent of the man-made grid, for they wanted to be ever aware of the old ways, and they liked the reminder of the days to come, which they could drive their trucks through, which their children and puppies could kick up dirt within. You and your loved one visited such a place, and you stood there in deep remembrance of this very time, my love. This null zone, you have passed it. We told you it was magnetic, did we not? We chuckle as you grin, as you see the absolute fun of all of this, as the personalities and faces and responsibilities swirl and soar, and each of us plays these roles gladly from time to time, wearing different suits, telling ourselves vastly different stories about where we came from, what we once knew to be true, and what we now know to be a bigger, more inclusive, happier, and more satisfying truth just for ourselves. We see now how this meld, you see now how this meld is entirely possible while you are doing your laundry. Oh, she's got it. Oh, she's got it. And she lets everyone see her do it. Oh, we have a clever one here. And then in parentheses, freaking transmission ends. I did that during second edit, now to continue. And you did not have to hunker down in the dark for 3 nights and 3 days, not literally. You see now how many of our teachings were said in a literal tone, never to be taken literally. You were not yet advanced enough to take this in whole. No one was, love, no one. The null zone has indeed passed. Now, what did we tell you of the time after the null zone? Do you remember? Quiet, listen to the music, and remember, love, because we are here. Acquaint yourselves once again with this knowledge. And then we ask after this time that you again step aside and be in the stars as we have instructed so we can continue. Of course, we are from the 7 sisters, as are you, but love, we are from the stars beyond, each but one set of incarnations, one set of instructions, one glorious assignment we gave ourselves, one after another. This has been going on as long as you think, and there is no beginning, there is no end. And so this focus, the blue planet you have longed for, of course, this is where you feel resonance, because we are entangled. We, you, we. So you can call this Pleiadian, sure, but it is so much vaster than that. We are what you have termed the teachers, but we are a part of a group of energies which were allowed to expand, and we thank you and your collective for this. We said we would not be back, and in certain ways we are not, and how you knew us was through the filters of another grand and true soul sister, your brother sister. We are one. We tell you now of the time after the null zone, a time you have fretfully passed from. This time is one of newness. It is no accident you pulled only one major arcana card, and that the Fool, and it covering you. You and your friends are freshly birthed in so many, many ways. You know you hear music of the spheres. You know a new balance and integrity. You know little of the fear and panic gripping hearts. It is a reality for many. But there are now ones on this earth who do not resonate in the old way. No, not at all. This will create many quite humorous and enjoyable situations, and not one of them will cause any one of you giants a bit of harm. For you now wield a special balm which covers any sting your simple words contain for those who slumber. You know now that it is fine to completely miss the point of what is happening, because to understand takes a lifetime of devotion. And now, the part we love. Get used to relinquishing all exclusivity for this vibration. Forever please, we ask you forever abandon the notion that you are in any way special. in any way at all, please, for the love of all that is holy, we pray. You dwell in the knowledge, in the joy, in the happiness of knowing yourself as you do. And that is all. That is all. That is all. And dear one, understand, it is all there is to do. You have done all there is to do. Do you understand? Your job from this point forward is to give away the keys to the kingdom without saying a word. We urge you to still your tongue and let other abilities come to the fore now. We speak to each reader's hearts now. Each reader, each old one, hear us and feel us and wonder if perhaps it might be true for you too. No longer must you study so lavishly, though we do enjoy speaking through the materials you choose. How can we not? We are in love with you. We must touch you. We are touching you now. We love you into stillness now. You may drive and think on the image we have given you, and each of your readers will come to conjure up a handy image that takes them swiftly into bliss. There is something there for each that has been brewing, cooking, readying, and has indeed been delivered just overnight, as they say. This is another reason we ask you to do this daily, just for a time. These solar blasts are mighty, and so are the gifts they contain. Each of you are now connected to us. There is no longer the filters which kept our whispers silent. Can you hear us? You hear the buzzes. You feel the plucking. You all get the headaches. We soften as you soften, loved ones. Do you see? So sometimes the context is someone who is hungry and wants to have a bite of your apple. You need not deliver a sermon or even say a word. You hand over the apple. Sometimes the context is writing a novel, passing a pill, telling a joke, petting a cat, calling someone who you can sense may be in fear or pain. Do you see how easy it gets for our little needle? You need not light incense and put on the pretty music, although we prefer it as you wish. Always and forever and a day as you wish. Consider that our heart song are to yours, as you wish. You need not cloister yourself further. Consider the doors of your home, your heart, your very fields forever open to friends and family and everyone you encounter. Everyone is a friend, and everyone you encounter, everyone is family. And those now entering your fields from this time on, they simply sense that in your presence there are certain expectations of conduct. Expectations need not be met, but when they are, oh, does the dancing get hot, sweaty, orgiastic. On your side and on our side of the veil, your work can be quite sedate, dear ones, as sometimes it still must be. But do not doubt that when there is mutual respect, when others sense that you offer only peace, and they need not feel shame near you, oh, does everyone rejoice. That's why you climb the mountain. That's why it hurt so bad. That's why you often felt like nothing. Sing the song of the shameless, the blameless, the guiltless, the fearless. There is power in shedding this gift of your fathers, a gift you meticulously and methodically and with great love and foresight gave yourself, if truth be told. But it is gift from a male energy that is unbalanced, that chose to be deaf to the proclamations of love that were never spoken clearly anyway. This is an old gift, and you know the importance of honoring a gift. Any gift at all is sacred, and it is profound, and it is deep. Any gift. And this one was such that without it, you would not be sitting here tapping on this keyboard, mapping out a very interesting future. So, how is it after the null zone? Do you remember now? We told you that nothing artificial would remain. Of course, you took that quite literally, as did the Pueblans, as you yourself incarnated and interpreted it on the plains of New Mexico, and then visited with that beautiful entity who loves you so very much. You stood on the very dirt of your family estate with her. Huh, the symmetry. Do you think you were alone on these grand adventures? Oh, silly one. Why do you think we are writing this today? Why posting this seems so important to Little Mind, more important than going and getting your chores done? It's because others' timelines are also closing within their consciousness, and you are so verbal and a little pushy and pretty opinionated, truth be told, and far too coarse. You must work on that. But really, come on, honestly now, do you think you're so special that you're the only one in the universe who's experiencing this? Now we have you laughing. Good. It's the same damn thing we have had to repeat to you again and again since puberty. That's why it's so familiar. As was the language, and we thank you for your tolerance of and love of appropriate profanity. Back to life after the null zone, and then we will end. Yes, this is a complex one. Fun, though. We told you that nothing artificial would remain. Nothing that was not natural could be sustained. It would be vanished. It would be gone, and you'd have to figure out how to get along without it. We reminded you, did we not, 20 years ago, to ready for the null zone. Be ready for the time when nothing artificial remains. Do you remember our primary admonishment? To always be honest? Recall now why we said what we did. We told you there had been an alignment, a shift, and as such, it would be increasingly impossible to hide anything about yourself. We helped you, week by week, to learn the ways of true honesty, of true shamelessness, of true acceptance. And we showed you, in all of your encounters, just how valuable you were, in all your affected and really pretty convincing victimhood and sadness. The homesickness, that needed to be addressed. It was a bit of a malfunction, truth be told, but most of the first wave have it, so this is another reason we are here, to help calm the nerves of the oldest and bravest warriors among you. Your readers, the Rainbow Tribe elders, the ancients, we like to call you. Makes you feel good, we know. But it feels good because you know in your ancient heart that it's true and right and straight and pure. To say this word in connection with you, you know it to be true. And so it is. And so it is. This was the reason we came to you to visit you, love, because, dear one, you decided to bury your great light, and you were needed to remember how to unbury yourself. You set it up that your burdens would be too great for you to carry yourself. Do you understand now why you know what you know and have known what you have known? Is it beginning to make sense? There is not one reader with their eyes on this page at this point who has not been just a breath away from leaving this earth. Many times, most of you, many times. And it was always surprising to you when you came back, and yet it was really never in doubt, was it? Most of the daredevils did it consciously. The poets did it metaphorically. The religious ones did it through addiction many times, and many of you did it while you slept, loved ones. These were simple journeys your consciousness had to make to get you comfortable with the notion that there is no death. To own this on a cellular level, you understand about the stability of your own soul as a result, and you would not have really understood this had you not flirted with your own annihilation quite so much. Many of you lived out the termination sequences again and again, and were more than ready to assist in the termination, which was a possibility. Remember, those who know of the termination codes also appreciate the codes to activation and active, full-on ascension. But none of you had to do it, and each of you are deeply gratified that the destroyers did not have to once again plunge this experiment into stasis, waiting once again for another chance, because there really was no chance like the alignment, and there was no other way. It was a decision point, a turning point, and the beginning of your lives now. Remember, you of the first wave, that you are of the earth, but you are not from the earth. You came in to help. You came in to do this thing. You came in to hold awakened DNA and then pass this awakened state to others through magnetic induction and the very power of love itself. Your bodies are beacons of divine love, whether you want to cop to it or not. Get used to it. It is funny to us seeing this management you have done with so much grace and humor, writing these understandings, playing with us, and yet going to work, conducting business, satisfying people who do not conceive of these ideas, who would cry if you spoke of them, who would be quick to anger and dread. The thing is, we instructed you well, and you understand now that this is the time for the first wave. It is now occurring. We have much to say about this. We gave you a parable last night. We will stop dictation soon, but rest assured, yes, finally, the information which you handily forgot about the days after the null zone, this information is now available. There was a reason of your amnesia. There was a reason for your amnesia, and we wish to explain it before we sign off. Before this, we will say, this is the day of loose ends. Do not attend to these, your own loose ends in anger or fear or dread or resentment. Do each joyfully. Find fun in each unpleasant task you have preconceived as unpleasant. Many of them on your schedule today are highly so, but these are your assignments. Start remembering our heart prayer to you, as you wish, dear one, all. Now, where were we? Oh, we speak of your amnesia. You have been disappointed and worried because there is so much you do not recall about our talks. So be it. Do you recall what we told you about your home planet? We wish for you to end with this because we think that the readers will get a kick out of it. We listened to your fervent pleas to tell you all about where you came from. Your longing was so heartbreaking, magnificent, such a burning we felt from you, lighting you up so. We loved you so very much during those deep days of despair. We know that being around us was all that mattered to you, and being apart was very painful, has been very painful. We love you and want you to know we never really left you. We just have not been able to be experienced by your senses, such as they were. Now you know this is true, and that this is the difference in consciousness, the key to so much. And the amnesia we allowed to settle onto our words is the same amnesia you have for your home. We told you that it was called the Blue Planet. We told you it was beautiful, and we told you we could tell you no more. Oh, how we wished we could give you more. But remember what we said to you, our reason for our gift of silence, dear one. We told you that if you knew more than its color and its incredible beauty, you would remember too much, your longing would overtake you, and you wouldn't stay. Do you understand the profundity of what we said to you that afternoon? We leave you with that. We each and everyone who reads these words and everyone who does not, who turns away in disinterest or fear or revulsion, each and every one of you now, the changelings. We leave in the arms of an angel who loves you only as your ancient mother can. We leave you in the arms of an angel who loves you as only an ancient mother can. How can she be apart from you now, after all this time? How can she really leave you now that you can hear? Now that there's a stereo system that is wired for sound for the entire universe, And the very needle making the heavens sing is within your forever open, grateful, loving, tender, soft, giving, generous heart. Dear one, you may be the needle, but your DNA is everything else that was described. And one by one, the lights are coming up. And there are all sorts of phonograph players sounding out. And the music, the beauty, this music, oh, it is nearly deafening. Nearly. But not enough to be able to bend into your ear right now and speak to the part of you that knows us as yourself. Let us whisper, speak, love you now and forevermore. Thank you for what you have done for us and for yourself. Until tomorrow.